Alhamdulillah. Alright. We'll probably have to monitor comments later, but for now, yeah. It's coming. Okay. Stop the recording for right now for the other one. Pause recording. Pause. No. Actually, it's fine. It's fine.
Nobody's watching right now, but it's live. Yeah. Actually, there are 5 people watching, so it's good.
And you also record it, right?
Yeah.
Is this a YouTube live?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just not recording. We just press record. Yeah, I'll press record.
Okay, it's coming now.
I just press record so it's staying. Yeah, it's like it has a little delay. It's doing okay? Oh, that quality is weak. It's probably because our internet's not great.
Assalamualaikum. How are you all this evening? My name is Omar. Nassimi. I'm the program manager here at Mixbase. It's good to see you all tonight. This is the first of a 3-week session, which is going to be on this class of the existence of God. This is going to take us through both the logical and empirical proof of the existence of God, and it's going to be any questions throughout. We might turn this into a 4-week class. We'll continue. Not to my father. Might talk a little bit more about that, but just to let you know about what's happening with Mixbase. Every month, inshallah, from now on, we're going to have a class like this. It's going to be 3 to 4 weeks, covering a topic that's more in depth. So we're looking at different classical texts. We want to do another talk about union, talk about desire, talk about a lot of different religions and history. And this kind of 3 to 4 week format allows us to go more in depth into the topic. And on top of that, we're also going to have different kind of events where we're going to feature intellectuals, creative people in the Muslim community. So without further ado, on Facebook and all kinds of things like that. For tonight, we have student talking and drinks and stuff, so feel free to any time. And the event is being recorded and live, so after this, if you have anything to go back to the community, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. All right, we are ready to start.
It's okay.
Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I want to first give you a very warm welcome to take this class and to be here. And Alhamdulillah, it's a great opportunity that Allah has created for all of us. And we should be thankful to Allah and thankful to Kalash and to the organizers. And we should, inshallah, be looking forward to what we're going to learn here. Because it takes us, inshallah, to a journey of intellectual deep reflection and critical thinking about a very, very important and significant topic of life, which is belief and disbelief in the existence of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so myself, you see my name here, and alhamdulillah, I'm honored to be at your service, and I'm teaching this class voluntarily. So alhamdulillah, I'm happy to be here and offering each classes at Nova College, different campuses of Nova, and also I've been teaching at Johns Hopkins University and Columbia University, Islamic class, world religions class, introduction to religion, and comparative religion, especially between Islam, Christianity, Judaism. I have a unique background that I'm trying to share with you, but basically I used to be an electrical engineer for a long time. And I left that career after getting a master's degree in the field for 15 years. I left that career because I wanted to serve Islam and Muslims, and especially in this society, after I realized that there's so much misunderstanding and misconceptions about Islam. So Allah blessed me to
They are very influential people. There are very few people, but very influential in the media, influential in the educational systems of schools, and in the academic environment especially. You will see that a lot of atheistic thoughts are around, and you and me and our children and our other people around us are influenced one way or another. So we all need to learn how to explain our belief, or how to understand deeply that yes, there is a God, yes, there is Allah, logically and intellectually, not just that, okay, you have to accept what this is, what it is. And so the topic is really important, because we would be asked. We would be asked by ourselves, we would be asked by other people, whether we like it or not. And most of us, we may say, well, I already believe in Allah. Yes, alhamdulillah, as a Muslim, that's what is expected from you, that you already believe. But that belief could be not based on real, foundations of reasoning and logic. And so somebody could easily shake in your belief. Somebody can easily make you become doubtful about it. Somebody can easily, make you, like speechless when they ask you some questions or raise some issues, and then you don't know how to say, and so and it's frustrating. It's frustrating that something so basic and so deep and so important in your life, you're not able to describe it in proper ways. You're not able to elaborate on this kind of topic, that we all should have a good command of it, because this is the most important topic of our life. So we have to learn. We have to learn and become, good in it, in explaining it, and have a good command of it. These days also, especially in the academic environment, atheism and science are presented as if one does not exist without the other. As if you believe in science, you must believe in atheism. Or if you believe in atheism, then science is your basis and your reasoning, and you can't believe in science and you can't be atheist. That's how sometimes it's portrayed. So we have to understand that connection and that concept. How true is that from Islamic point of view and from basic logic point of view? And then also people learn about religion. Usually people learn about the religion of their parents, or religion around them, or the religion that's dominant in the society. They learn about that religion, and then they make their conclusion about all religions. Just because their religion could not answer certain questions and could not describe in a logical way the reasoning, so then they make this generalization that all religions are false, or religions are man-made, and we don't have to believe in any religion. Such generalizations are often made, as you may have witnessed. While if we study Islam intellectually, logically, you will see that, and we know that most of us, that Islam has completely different position about all these topics. Islam emphasizes on using reason, using aql, using logic when it comes to beliefs. And Allah takes us through journeys and journeys of faith through the Quran to convince us first about His existence, second about His oneness, and then about His promise of next life, that there is another life. Surahs and surahs are full of logical reasoning to convince us that there is another life. Surahs and surahs are full of reasons and wisdom to explain that this man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was a genuine prophet of Allah, a messenger of Allah. Surahs and surahs are full of reasons to convince us that this Quran is the book of Allah, this is not the book of any human being or anybody. So we see that when it comes to beliefs, Islam takes a very intellectual, a logical approach to convince us about the truth of the faith if we have lost our original faith in the beginning. And so Islam is a completely different path compared to other religions. A lot of religions, they tell you that, when you ask questions about beliefs, they say, oh, you just have to accept it, it's a myth. How can a belief be a myth? Belief is something that you base all of your life on it. It better make sense. It better be witnessed by the heart and the mind. How it's not possible to live based on something and dedicate all of your life for it, for something that doesn't make sense. So it has to be. And also, Islam describes the God in a very perfect way. A lot of religions give human weaknesses to God. They attribute all kinds of shortcomings about God, that the way they present God, you wonder what kind of God is that, How could God be so weak or so vulnerable or making mistakes? Or they call it a revengeful God. They call it a God who is really regretting certain things. A God who learns from his mistakes. A God who, all kinds of human weaknesses are attributed to God. But when you study Islam, and you find that, wow, there's not even one single little opportunity that can be misunderstood that God has a shortcoming or a weakness. And also, when it comes to science, Islam is the only religion that has no contradictions with any kind of scientific facts. Scientific theories and hypotheses, yes, there could be that they may not agree with Islam, and because scientific theories do change after a while, although some scientific theories reach a point of almost confirming everything, but most of the time scientific theories do change, and scientists also may or may not agree about it. But when it comes to scientific facts, things that are proved in the lab and you can repeat it and you can verify it, that there has been no single scientific fact that has contradicted the Islamic teachings, especially the Quranic teachings. So just understanding these 3 points about Islam gives us a completely different view of realities in terms of science, in terms of logic, in terms of perfection of God. So we're going to go into details, of course. I'm just giving you a synopsis right now that what we are going to talk about. So now, what specific topics we're going to cover in this class? First, we're explore some basic questions about God. Who is God? How God is described? What are the arguments for the existence of God, and what are the arguments against the existence of God? And then we will see if there is a rational approach to explore the existence of God and to confirm the existence of God. And then we will see that there are 2 methods of logical inference, using logic to make conclusions, and using the testimony of expert witnesses. That in science we use it, in society we use it, in social sciences we always use this concept, that how we can use these 2 concepts to confirm and prove the existence of God. And then we will see how, so this is all from logical point of view, from common sense approach. And then getting into Islam after that, what does Islam specifically says about God? What kind of God is introduced through Islam? And basically we will find out that Islam describes that God reveals himself in 3 different ways. And there are all kinds of signs of God around us and inside us, which are called ayat. And they are more than enough to confirm the existence of God. And then we will also look at scientific approaches, that's why we cannot have a scientific proof for the existence of God, but there are enough scientific thoughts and ideas about it. And then how Quran specifically relates with science. And then the main question of why human sufferings and injustices, because that's one of the main causes of disbelief that people don't have a good understanding of injustices in the world. So we'll go into that topic in details by first understanding what is the purpose of life, why God created human beings, and then how God has designed the human body. Is the design perfect, or there's any issues with the design of the body? That why, if the body is perfect design, then why we get sick and all the other issues? And if it is not if it is perfect, why we get that? And if it is not perfect, how could you say God did not design perfect? So these kind of thoughts, we're going to discuss it. And also design of the nature, how the world is designed, how the universe is designed, and why natural disasters that take lives of masses of people. So these are the kind of topics that we're going to go into to get a good understanding of this belief in God. Now, before getting to this class, also a few things about this class. We're here to learn by teaching, not preaching. So it's a very important point that, we're not in an environment that is saying you have to accept it and this is what it is, As sometimes, some people present it that way. We're learning through a logical approach, a very open environment, open for questions, open for critique, open for challenging the topic, the subject, ourselves, and really making sure that I really understand something. It is not just that I'm asked to accept something. And our approach would be objective as much as possible. Of course, nothing is absolutely objective. There are some biases, sometimes natural, but we will try to be as objective as possible. And this class would require a lot of reflections, a lot of critical thinking that you will be prompted, to do so. And we will learn the knowledge in a systematic way. We're going to build the knowledge in a systematic approach. And also we would have all kinds of questions and issues related to the topic that we'll try to explain and answer. And you're welcome to raise them as you see appropriate. But to benefit from this class, it's extremely important to stay open-minded. Even though you may be in this class already with a position that, no, I'm not going to believe no matter what. No, I already am established, I'm settled. But if you want to really benefit from this class, no matter how much reasoning you have or you think you have, I invite you to be open-minded and to give yourself a chance to look at things from a different perspective. And then, of course, it's your decision at the end of this class whether you will agree or not, or whether you like it or not. It's your choice, but at least give yourself a chance to understand and absorb some new data, maybe. And also, this class, of course, to benefit from it, it needs a lot of commitment and dedication. You really want to learn from this class in a way that it's conducive to yourself, to others. You want to come on time, and we'll talk about the timing. If 7 p.m. is kind of early, we can start at 7:30. In case some of you come late from work and you want to have dinner and then come here. So if finishing 9:30 is not late, we can start at 7:30. That could be an option. We'll talk about it. But we want to be on time. You want to be on time, and you want to not miss even 5 minutes of this class. And also, as you go home, I want you to read the slides again and reflect on it deeper, because here, some of the things that you hear for the first time, you may be able to absorb a certain percentage of it, but not all of it. You think that, I already know this, but if you really read it, these are entity really exists? And if so, why? I cannot see God. That's natural, that question. We have gone through that questioning journey, I'm sure, if not now, when we were crossing the age of childhood, we said with our parents, we said, where is God? Why I cannot see God? That's understandable, those kind of questions. And if I cannot see God, then how else I can confirm the existence of God? How else? What are the other possibilities or approaches that I can confirm? Humanity throughout the history, but people have rejected the existence of God. And those who believe in God, they may have different concepts of God. Some people believe in one God, some people believe in multiple gods, some people believe in zero God, some people say, I'm not sure. So you will find all kinds of diverse concepts even in those people who believe in the existence of God. By the way, I have some additional descriptions outline. So if some of these sentences much more, so please read the bottom of this also. Now, why people believe in the existence of God? Before we get into that question more specifically, believers in God in general, they have so much confidence in their belief in God that when you ask them this kind of question, it sounds an offensive question to them. In general, if you go across the world and if you talk to people who believe in God, if you ask them, why do you believe in God? They take it very offensive. They say that, what kind of question is that? And they don't see the need to explain to you. They feel like this is a dumb question. Most of the people around the world. They feel like you're asking them, why do you exist? Do you really exist? Say, wait a minute, you're doubting that I exist? Are you blind? Are you deaf? What's wrong with you? You don't see me, you cannot hear my voice, anything? Maybe you're both blind and deaf that you cannot see me and you're asking me, why do I exist? Or you want to know a reason, or you want to be convinced that I really exist? How could you ask? So believers have that much confidence, just like I exist, God exists. And they are more sure about God's existence than their own existence. Around the world, if you travel anywhere, of course in America, it's a kind of environment, and especially the youth here with a lot of exposure to atheism and atheistic thoughts through media and others. But in general, around the world, if you travel, that's the reaction of believers. So because they are so confident, they're so serious about this topic, they look at this kind of question as a kind of damn question or a kind of irrelevant question. Why would you ask that kind of question? Now, however, as we are living in a society that this question is being asked all the time, so even if there are some people among us who have that kind of feeling towards the question of existence of God, I invite you to take your time and learn it. Why? Because there are some people who would ask you and you want to know how to describe it, how to answer. So this is the belief in God, but why some people deny God then? Why some people have denied God and do deny and will deny the existence of God? What do you think? What are the descriptions that you have heard from people who say there is no God? Come on. What have you heard? Why they don't believe? Raise your hand. Yes.
No.
Because they say there is no
proof.
Meaning scientific, right? So no scientific proof. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Why do bad things happen?
Why the bad things happen? What else?
that kind of
Because we cannot see him. So, right? What else? What else you have heard of those people who say, I don't believe in God? Why they say that? Come on.
Usually when they ask for something and it takes a while or it never happens, they start losing hope.
So their prayers are not answered. When they say, I prayed, but my prayer was not answered, so maybe no God. That's what they conclude. Okay. What else? Yes?
They may have found out in organized religion that they're turned off by the religion of their parents, so they want to move away from there.
So he didn't want to explain to them properly, or religion did not make sense. Yep. What else?
Where did God come from?
Where God came from. If we are created by God, where God came from. And that question, if it's not answered, then people are convinced and out. Yes. What else? Come on. Be shy. Ask about discussions, thinking, reflections. Do participate actively, please. What else? What else you have heard from people who say they don't believe in God? All right, let's go through a few of the reasons and descriptions that they give. So most people say, if God exists, then I should be able to see Him. And if I don't see Him, or if I cannot perceive Him by my senses, basically, not accept Him, right? And many other people say that, or the people say that there must be some kind of scientific proof. Science should be able to prove it. And if science does not prove it, then I cannot accept. Okay, so we'll come back to these issues or questions, but right now we'll just go through the list. Not having an explanation for the injustices and sufferings, so as we alluded to, and natural disasters, why hundreds and thousands of people all of a sudden happen, and why God does not stop it if He is there, right? They say that. And not having a scientific evidence. And also, sometimes people have studied their religion, and the religion makes certain claims that are rejected by scientific evidences and scientific advances. So they say that, I cannot accept something that's rejected by science. So that must, and then they go and generalize about the whole religion and all other religions, the same thing. Also, not seeing the result of the prayers is another explanation for many people that say, prayed a lot, so and so prayed so much, the prayer was not answered. If God existed, then why those prayers were not answered? Some people have had some bad experience with some religious people. And they said, the heck with the religion, because I know so-and-so, a religious person, he exploited so-and-so, and he took advantage of this, and he really did certain things that I can't, expect from a religious person, or so-and-so in the history, or so-and-so among my family or relatives, a very religious person, but these kind of things. So it discourages them to deny the religion and God because of the experience that they have had with some religious people. And sometimes with religious teachings. With religious teachings, sometimes they either find religious teachings having conflicting statements. Sometimes religious teachings do not make sense. And so all of that, and sometimes in the history, some conflicts have taken place because of religion. So then they say, the heck with the religion. I don't want any religion and any belief in anything. Sometimes people disbelieve in God just because their parents have not believed. Their parents have been telling them all along, there's no God, there's no God, there's no God. So that's what they have been basically trained to not believe in God. Or they had belief, but they had some friends who influenced them. Some other people, some teachers, some professors, some people, influence their beliefs. And sometimes they have read some books or some websites, or they have been affected by certain ideologies, and they started rejecting the existence of God. Sometimes some people say, I don't feel the need for believing in God. I can do everything myself. I can depend on myself and all the resources around me. And I can depend on the means, my money, other people around me. And I don't see the need to believe in something, because they say that if I believe in something, then I have to do certain things. I don't want to do anything, So I don't see the need. And a major concern for many people is that, if I believe in something, then certain obligations, I have certain things that I should stay away from. I may lose some of my autonomy, some of my liberties. And so these are some of the explanations from people who don't believe. Anything else that you have heard that people do not believe in God beyond this list?
I've heard the character of God being a reason people deny as well. Explanation of himself being overzealous, or in certain texts.
Descriptions of God, yeah. So religious claims that we say that don't make sense. The way that religions made a claim about God. Yes. Good. What else?
Just kind of like their life, what really understand so just some people that
they have not thought about it at all, and they have been raised in that way that God has not been a step of their life. Is that what you're saying?
just more specific, something not reflecting or like
Yes.
existence.
Their own life. God is. Right. Yes.
The question that if God is the supreme being, then why does he need us to worship him on a regular basis?
Why he asks us for worship? If he's a supreme being, then why we have to worship him? Okay? What else?
That's probably the not trusting one, but the idea that the dogmatic religion, that we are like the chosen one, everybody else is wrong, and we are the only one upon the truth. So that kind of can turn people off when they're not a part of that particular groups. So an idea like, okay, well, God chose.
So some religions claim that we are chosen and others are not chosen. That turns people off about God.
Yeah, it's like as if like we only can get to God by doing this people, and then well, I don't like us.
Please, who are the, worldly lives like saying, worldly lifestyle is like people, more concentrate on how to survive from this life easily, own selves, without any help of God. So there is actually no belief.
So depending on themselves, and they don't feel that they don't believe. All right. What else? Yes.
Like a really strong point. It's like a conclusion of like religion, making yourself like it's like a separation of people because your religion makes you like exclusive.
Right. So, religion or a religion with belief in God? So the question is that whether some religions, when they claim that we are chosen people and then excludes other people, so other don't feel not part of it, and they question the whole thing. Is that a religious claim? Is that a problem with religion or problem? Usually, we have to separate issues with religion versus issues with God. So first, it's important that people are convinced about the existence of God. And then, after that, then they are expected to explore which religion makes sense or which religion describes God in a proper way that I can go with. A lot of times, people do these generalizations from religion because certain claims of religions are not acceptable, do not make sense, and they reject God, which should not be the case. They should, but it's happening. Yes, unfortunately. Okay, so this is one the descriptions, beliefs, uses, whatever you call it, for denying the existence of God. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Those who believe in God, why they believe in God, on what? Come on. Whatever about yourself. I know too many reasons you may say, but someone mentioned. Yes.
My parents made me do it.
That's told me to believe. All right. Why people believe in God? Of faith. Okay. What else? Yes.
It's the innate feeling, so you feel like a natural connection to the divine.
The feeling in the heart, the feeling inside people, as long as their life and heart is not influenced by outside, if the heart is pure, it feels the presence of God. Okay. What else? The guidance that they have received is convincing for them to believe in God. What else?
Who created everything?
Who created everything? And no question of creation. Signs of God, S-I-G-N, right? Human science, yes.
I guess some things that are like supernatural that happen in your life where it could be like anything else but God.
Supernatural things happen, miracles that happen, that explains there must be someone above all of the universe. Okay. What else?
Spiritual.
1 second, if you raise your hand.
The perfection of His creation.
Perfection in the creation convinces a person that someone must be behind all of this.
Yeah, spiritual connection.
Connection, spirituality, naturally. Yes.
Matters of life and death. So some people referred it to them because they had a near-death experience, and prior to that point, they didn't do anything. That makes them realize who brought them back to life when they were on the brink of death. That realization from who initiates the creation and ends and terminates.
The experience of life, death, and here, yes. What else? Yes.
Prayers that are in.
Prayers that are answered versus prayers that are not, that's rejected. Okay. Come on. Yes.
Even though I didn't see heaven, I believe there is heaven because God created everything perfectly. So it should be something more perfect than.
There must be common sense that God created the world as well as all of issues. There must be something much more perfect.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
People
the cause of the following points at least, just a few. This universe, how this universe, which is so sophisticated, so complicated, and so diverse and so vast, how could such a universe come by itself? There must be someone behind it, someone who created it. If you reflect on the creation of human beings, all this special body that we have, each of the organs, when you study it, is like bigger than a factory, and all the functionalities that exist, the independencies that exist between the organs of your body, everything that's happening inside us, around us for our lives to stay in, and every other things that support the life of human beings, that all tells us that there must be someone who is managing it, not only creating the universe, the human beings, but managing the life. And also reflection on other beings, animals, plants, everything else that are around us on the earth. And if you reflect on any of them and other things, even the wood, the stone, everything else that you see, reflect on their existence, it tells you that it could not come from nowhere and it could not come by itself. So reflect on any of these to lead you to believe in a power, supreme power. The process of birth and death. How come human beings are coming to a very established process to this world, a very systematic process, a very organized process that we go through, mother's pregnancy, and then certain stages that the baby is developed, and then the baby comes ready to live in this world, and then going through all these cycles, and eventually that the person has to die, wants to die. Nobody wants to die. And from the beginning of human, life on this earth, human beings have tried to avoid death. They have tried to prevent death, but they have not been able to succeed, and that takes over. Even those medical doctors, scientists, philosophers, all of them die, whether they like it or not, and people die at younger ages, old ages. So this death, births and deaths, there must be someone else in charge of life that bring us without our choice to this world and take us out without our choice, and so there must be someone. Also, the division of human beings into male and female and pairs and everything else, and even animals have male and female, plants have a male and female, even in the matter and the you see the positive and negative charges, and in the world, in the universe, you see sun and moon as pairs, heaven and earth as pairs, everything in pairs. Why not several different sexes, So if it's random, it's happening by itself, and instead of just male and female, you should have like tens of different kind of sexes. Why only two in everything, and how it is happening? You just look at around us the day and night, how it is organized, life is organized in the earth, that we have day and night in a very systematic and regular ways, that we have certain amount of hours for daytime and then certain amount of hours for nighttime, and it's so consistent and it is repeated. Someone must be in charge of this creation of day and night. Someone must be, must have thought of it and planned it for us. Provisions of life, how our food is provided for us, how the earth that we are living on has become fertile to produce all kinds of food for us, and then the rain coming in an organized manner, and the animals that are created, all provisions, the air that we are breathing, everything that we depend on, how they are provided. The children, before they come to this world, the mother has the milk ready for the baby, so how this is all happening, that everybody's provisions are provided. So only like these few points out of tens and hundreds of other points related or diverse points, is enough to help you to to reflect deeply about the existence of someone behind this world. Now, some people may say, well, there are scientific explanations for each of these, that how the universe was created, how human beings are created, how the births happen and how the deaths happen. True, yes, there are some scientific explanations, but scientific explanations focus on what? Scientific explanations focus on how things happened. Go through any scientific studies. Scientific studies do not care about who made it happen. It only worries about what happened, how it happened. Okay? If you take any study, for example, cardiology, you look at the science of cardiology and there are thousands of great books written about the heart. That how the heart works. Wonderful information that amazes you that, wow, the heart works. So all it talks about how the heart works. There is not even one sentence that who made the heart working, right? Not even one sentence that who made the heart working. The same thing about any other aspect of nature, the world. Science does care about how it works. Science doesn't care who made it work. But isn't it common sense that who is there, whether science talks about it or not? It is not scientific to make a conclusion that God doesn't exist just because science doesn't talk about God. It is not scientific to reject the existence of God just because science doesn't talk about it. Science does not prove that God doesn't exist. Science just doesn't talk about it. But common sense says that if there's a piece of art, there's an artist behind it. If there's a design, there's a designer behind it. Whether people talk about it or not. If there is a plan, there is a planner behind it. This is common sense, right? There is no scientific proof needed for who, because science doesn't talk about it. You know, let me share with you at this point something about my background. I grew up in Afghanistan, and when I was in college, second year of my college, you know, third year of my college is studying engineering. Russians invaded. When Russians invaded Afghanistan, so the communist regime was, you know, trying to tell people that, hey, you know, no God. They would not say explicitly, clearly, because the whole nation was Muslims, but this regime, this government that was put in place by Russians, you know, even before Russians came, this group of communists in Afghanistan, they took their power and they were trying to impose the atheism on people. So they would go around, if they catch a young person offering prayer in a Muslim country, if I was caught praying, that was enough for me to be killed. So many of my friends, I lost them because just they were caught praying. Nothing else, because they were caught praying. How come you're praying? So people would hide themselves to pray. Only the elderly was acceptable for them, but the young people, if they pray, was a big crime for them. And many people approached me in college that proved to us that where is God? Where is God? Why do you believe in God? Many people from the ruling party. And every time they were asking me this question, I was getting so frustrated at why they are asking this question and how ignorant these people are that they are asking a question about the existence of God. And of course, I didn't know how to explain it in ways, but I was fully convinced that there is a God, but I don't know how to explain. So this is now about 40 years ago, okay? Since that day, I have been studying this topic. And fully convinced from that time that God exists, but it had a major impact on me that why I'm not able to explain it. How I can convince this person who has been misled or misguided by some books and theories that they are saying God doesn't exist. So they were just saying that we cannot see God, how could you believe in God? Why you believe in something that you cannot see? You know, that was one of the main things they were continuously asking. And in terms of science, why we cannot prove it in science, and that was their other second thing, and as if there is a scientific explanation for anything, we'll accept it. If there's no scientific explanation, then we will not accept it. So if we really think about science, and it was in my third year actually, just the same year, we used to take 6 English classes in engineering college in Afghanistan. 6 English classes. The 6th English was called technical writing. Technical writing, how engineers should write. And continuously the professor was telling us that make sentences as passive sentences when you write technically. Do not make active sentences. Do not use the subject. Don't say that I did this in the lab. Say that in the lab it was done. Passive sentences. And I questioned that why they are removing the subject from everything that's happening in the science and in engineering. Until much later I realized that, the subject of science is not who, the subject of science is how, and why and what. So science doesn't care about who did. If you find a beautiful car, you just talk about the car, how this car works. If you get the iPhone, talk about this iPhone, wow, it's so impressive. You don't ever talk about who made the iPhone, who made the car, who made the airplane. You just talk about all the features that are impressing you, right? So science does not talk about who, but there's no scientific evidence that there is no who. There is, okay, you follow? It's very important. And also, all scientists of the world and all philosophers of the world, they all agree that there is a principle. That principle is called cause and effect. The principle of cause and effect basically says that nothing happens without a cause. Nothing starts to do something without a cause. Nothing stops to do something without a cause. Nothing moves without a cause. Principle is agreed upon by all scientists, all philosophers. According to this principle that everybody agrees, this life must have a cause. This world must have a cause, right? So who is the cause of this world and this universe? And all the natural phenomena that takes place must have a cause. Principle of cause and effect says that this chair is here because somebody made this chair and somebody brought this chair and put it here. Otherwise, this chair could not exist here. So that principle itself admits and agrees to the principle, to the existence of a power behind the universe, a power behind the life of people. There are a couple chairs open here if people want to use. There's one here in the second row. And oh, she's coming. And there's another. Is that being used? Oh, okay, sorry. Now, believers further say that, hey, reflect on the universe, reflect on the world. And when you reflect on the universe and any aspect of this universe, in any aspect of your life, you see all kinds of order. Everything is happening based on an order. Everything has certain patterns that helps us to study through science. Clouds, making rain. If there is no pattern, if there is no regularity, we cannot predict what's going to happen tomorrow as weatherman, right? As people who study the weather. Everything happening based on patterns, based on consistencies. If things don't happen consistently, we would not be able to explain anything through science. Everything in the world and in the universe is happening in an organized manner. And there's all kinds of regulation in every aspect of life within us and around us. Things are based on coordinated manner. There's all kinds of coordination, all of cooperation, timing, distances, everything. And there are processes, established processes. There's photosynthesis process that happens on the plants. The process of water cycle, that how it happens, that water is produced and comes to the earth and goes back to the air. The process of digestion, the process of heart circulation, everything that you study in science and outside, there's a process, there's a procedure behind it. And everything in us and around us has a purpose. So far, there is nothing inside the body or outside that people say there's no purpose. Sometimes they have said there's no purpose, but later on they have found, oh, there is a purpose. They have speculated that there's no purpose, but there is a purpose. Every little thing in the world, every animal, every plant, every insect has a purpose, that why they are there. And there are certain duties that are calculated for everything. For example, in order for our heart to work, how heart receives the blood, how it receives the oxygen, how it pumps the blood, and how it communicates with the lungs, and how all the air is provided, all the needs are provided for every organ. One by one, in every aspect of human's life, animal's life, and the nature. When you go through all of this and you just make some observations around it, then the next question that comes, can they happen through blind forces of nature by chance or accident or coincidence or randomly or by itself? Is there any possibility for all of these perfections to happen by a chance or by an accident or any of it? Common sense would not accept that, because anything that's happening properly, anything that's happening in an organized manner, anything that has a steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps and procedure, you think that you must conclude that there must be someone who designed it to happen like this. Otherwise, if it was random, it would have been randomly happening. Why always steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7? Why everything is happening so perfectly and regularly after a procedure? If it was an accident, one time it could happen regularly, because accidents only does one thing accidentally, right? Accidents do not create any kind of regularity in anything that happens. Chances, yes, there is some chance, sometimes certain things do, but chances do not create a process and a procedure that things happen, meticulously and regularly. So the next question is, can this kind of universe come about through any of these conjectures? Because all of these are conjectures, guesses, assumptions. We don't have any kind of proof for any of these possibilities except conjectures and guesses and assumptions. And any design can exist without a designer. Any plan can exist without a planner. Okay? So some food for thought that, believers, there's much more to go, but let's take a kind of 2 minutes break if you need to use a bathroom, or if you just need to stretch up so that my microphone also comes back. Just get up and stretch and sit down back. Inshallah, it will help. انشالله شما خسته نشده باشید. الحمدلله. از شما چطور است؟ اولادا خوب هستن؟ از آجی سه میشه نوال داری؟
خوب است نوال. هوا خراب بود، برف رحمت شد. برف
زیاد برف باریده نه؟
حال زیاد خداوند خیر کنه. بعضی‌ها آب شاید ببرن.
بیچاره مردم بسیار تکلیف زیاد دارن اونجا، غربت و فقر زیاد از زمستان سرشان سخت میشه.
کسی در فیسبوک نوشته که نباره خداوند باران کنه دوباره باز میگه چطور شد.
هر نعمت با یک سلسله امتحانات میایم، با یک سلسله قربانی کار داره دیگه. انشالله ببینیم بخیر. آرزو خدا داریم که هر سال بتانم برم.
نگذره حالات حالا کم خراب شده
متاسفانه امنیت روز به روز خراب شده میره.
بله خصوصا به این وقتا از آقای مجدد خبر شد
مجدد
بسیار آدم خوب بود،
بسیار آدم
پور ترور کرد، تارگت کلینگ حالا بسیار زیاد شده. به یکی از بدبختی های از که باید نمیشد. یکی از 18 سال این کار نبود یا اواخر حال شروع شد که بسیار کار بد آدینس ما شما از مذاهب دیگه هست؟
نمیفهم پرسان نکردم. اکثریت خماندار مسلمان است، اما یک دو نفر شاگرد بر من اشتباه کرد که یک دو تا فرندای ایتیست ما دعوت کنم اجازه است. گفتم ما اجازه است دیگه، شاید آمده باشه اما Salam, how are you? Yes, from the Alexandria class. Welcome. Alhamdulillah. أهلا وسهلا.
2012 or 11.
MashaAllah, long time ago.
Yeah, and I remember I went and I advertised your class and I bought everyone for the next semester. Liz, are you still teaching?
I'm still teaching, yes.
Which campus are you still teaching?
This semester I'm teaching in Annandale, but last semester in Alexandria also. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, mashallah. You know, this class changed my life, so.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And I look forward to the
چقدر خوش هستم که آمدی. Alhamdulillah. 3 weeks.
We'll continue.
I'm very happy to see you. So what are you up to these days? Finished?
I finished college, I'm working, I'm engaged.
Congratulations.
Do you remember Abdul? He was in our class, tall Pakistani boy.
You engaged with him?
No, but he's also married. I remember in one of my class reflections. Yeah, but good time, mashallah. May Allah reward you, and I never forget. Allah, I always make a dua for you.
Ameen, ameen. May Allah accept it from all of us.
Allahumma ameen, ya
And
Rabbi.
inshallah, you have benefited, you have really taken good benefit of it. Some students have not got, but you have, mashallah.
I have, and I started a group for the past 3 years for young Muslim women as a halaqa to learn about Allah and Tawheed.
Wonderful.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Wonderful.
Jazakallah khair.
حیاک. بسیار خوش شدم که آمدین. چی هم آمدین؟ دختر کاکایت هم دیدم منه؟ کوارت است مرجان. She's now here? Her husband also moved?
He's in the process, but he should be here.
مادر جانت خوب است؟ خب؟ صحت بتشه بخیر. I'm very happy to see you.
Yeah, it's nice. It's my first time here.
My first time too. بخیر هستید؟ الحمدلله شکر که شما را می‌بینم.
تینیجرها دبستانشان که دیپرشن یا ورشن از درس زیاد شده اطلاع امکان داره که مثلا باز آینده اگر امی تا بکنم جایی بکنم یا چی رقم امی دیپرشن یا از خود دور کنم بدون ازی که برم ترکز بدید منیایی بکنم.
بله اکثر اوقات دیپرشن از خاطر پرابلم بلیف است. سری کسا که بلیف ندارن برشان مشکلات که میایه بسیار چی میسازیشان به اصطلاح بریکشان میکنه و بسیار دیپرشن میگیرشان. اما اگر بلیف صحیح بیاموزن و اسلام صحیح بیاموزن یعنی most of the time از دیپرشن خود کشیده میتونن. پالیتون شیشته یا پشترتون؟ پشترتون.
مدرسه درست شاگرد لایق است نماز خود تا جایی که بتونه میخونه دوام بخواد که به اصطلاح سرچ میکنه چه فارسی مشکلات است انگلیسی اطلاعیان رو میبینیمش که بسیار گرفته است بسیار چی است بازم که برای ما بیرون یاد کرد که ما
انشالله دمی سشن سیم باز من چیزا رو گپ میزنم سرش. Okay, can we resume the class? Can we resume the class? Please. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف حالك؟ سعد بخير. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for this.
الحمد لله الحمد لله. Your family is here, huh?
Yes.
ما شاء الله.
Family and friends.
Wonderful. Check up shit.
There's a
battery problem?
Yeah, it's stupid. It's a rechargeable battery, so I can't put in a new one. I have to let it charge. So for the rest of the class, you might have to just. I mean, it'll still be recorded on the camera. You just can hear, can't just as much because this goes to the camera. So
Oh,
that
this
still
goes-
works.
Okay,
Yeah.
but here it's fine.
Yeah,
It's not a problem. Okay.
I didn't know that this was gonna die.
Right, can you get everybody from the hall so we can? Salam, so good to see you. All right, let's inshallah resume the class. We wanted a couple minutes break, it ended up 8 minutes now. Yalla, yalla, yalla. Please take your seats as soon as possible. Right, are there more people in the hall? Or some of them left? Yeah, can you remind them in the hall to come, please? Okay, so the microphone, I think you don't need microphone here in the class, right? So this microphone is for the video, so that's good. We have it. Okay, so we were talking about science and scientific proofs. And we're going to go into much more details of science later, but right now we're just touching the topic. The scientists, some famous scientists of the world, such as Francis Crick and James Watson, these are the two people who determined the structure of DNA. What do they say? Say you would be more likely to assemble a fully functioning and flying jumbo jet by passing a hurricane through a junkyard than you would be to assemble the DNA molecule by chance. So they are saying that, we can believe if you tell me that there is a hurricane that went through a junkyard, and as a result of that passing of hurricane, a fully functioning jumbo jet was made. I can believe that, which is so hard to believe. But so we can believe that, but we can't believe that a molecule of DNA has been made by itself, by chance. Because of the sophistication that they see in the molecule, there are billions of nucleotides that form our genes and our traits and all that. When you really study the DNA, then you would be having a second thought about any kind of things happening by chance or by accident. Even the scientists, top famous scientists of the world, reach to that kind of conclusion after studying science through the scientific studies. And then the nature of human beings, as it was mentioned by some of you, that if you really study the nature of human beings, in our original nature, in our pure nature that we came to this world, we have the belief in God. you will see that, especially talk to children. Children would hardly reject the existence of God. Children, they will be very receptive when you talk about the existence of God. Say anything about God, as long as you don't say something, against common sense or something wrong, they will listen, and they will listen very attentively, and they will not argue with you. It doesn't mean that their argumentative power has not been developed. They can argue about anything else left and right with you. But when I talk about God, they will listen so receptively. Because in the nature of human being, there must be some kind of belief in God. And as long as the nature is not influenced by outside, as long as it has not been exposed by other ideologies, the nature of human beings. And almost everybody in the world you talk to in general, especially people who have not been influenced by other ideologies, they say that I feel the existence of God in my heart, the existence of God in my heart. Where that feeling comes from? Why billions of people say that I feel the existence of God in my heart? Scientifically think about it, Who put this belief in the heart of all these billions of people who say that I believe in the existence of God? And only people who say, I don't believe in God because they have been affected by certain studies or certain questions or certain thoughts. And even if a person has grown up in a jungle and nobody has told them anything about God, they have just been growing up in an island, as long as they have not been influenced, they say, I believe in the existence of a higher power above me. Where is that coming from? Isn't belief in God a natural part of every human being? Isn't it part of nature of every human being, if that's the case? And also, why all religions in general, all divine religions and all religions in general, they center around the topic of God? Why God is the central topic? These all religions sit down and say, let us fake an idea of God and fool people and deceive people. Each religion, they sat down and came up with a concocted idea and say, let us fool people. Is that the case? And how they were not discovered, how they were not found, why billions and billions of people, listened to them and accepted the concept without questioning. What does the history tell us? The history is full of lessons, right? The history is the lab of political science, of any ideas in social sciences. The history talks about all these different civilizations, all these empires, all these people who thought that we will live forever, who never thought about death, or who rejected death, who rejected everything, and they thought that they are running this world, running this universe, They thought that everything in this world is in my hand. But a little thing made him die. That person died and went and gone. And where are they? And what does the history explain to us in terms of belief in God and existence of God and all those believers and all those people who have come throughout the history and explained God and teachings of God? So isn't history itself a witness of a lot of realities and truth? Now, a lot of times, people who do not believe in God, they say that we do not believe in God because believers do not have any evidence for God. They say because there is no evidence for the existence of God. And if you tell them that, okay, let us hold on to our evidence, but let me ask you, what is your evidence that God doesn't exist? If you ask them, what is your evidence that you say God doesn't exist? Proving the evidence of something is much easier than proving the lack of evidence of something, right? If someone has a theory that apple exists, all this person has to do is bring one of the apples and say, here's the proof. But if a person says the apple doesn't exist, then this person must travel through the whole world, every country, every corner of every country, and they have to travel through the oceans and through the air and through all the different galaxies, and every piece of every part of the universe, they have to go and then come back and say, there is no apple in the world. It's so difficult, which is not possible by human research to prove the lack of existence of something. While existence of something is much easier to prove. So they say, what is your proof that when you say that there is no proof for existence of God, but what is your proof for lack of existence of God? And if you talk to them and if you listen to all the theories behind this, you will find that they are making some big assumptions. Big assumptions, for example, why there are so much human sufferings. Why there are so much human suffering. So just because they don't know the wisdom of the sufferings, now they are making a conclusion that God doesn't exist. Or just because my prayers were not answered, so this is an assumption, right? This is just a conjecture that God doesn't exist because my prayers were not answered. Well, millions of other people say my prayers were answered. Millions of other people say, I know why we have sufferings. So why do you make such a conclusion based on an assumption, based on a guesswork that God doesn't exist? Is it reasonable to deny God because of not seeing? There are millions of things that we cannot see and we do not see, but we believe in them, in their existence. We don't have to see everything to believe in their existence, right? Can we see energy, for example? Can we see electricity? Can we see our minds? Can we see aql? There are millions of things inside us and around us that exist and we do not see them. But then why we believe in them? Because of their impact, because of their signs, because of their effect and relationship with other things. When we see things, then we say, oh, it exists because of this, because of that, right? And is it reasonable to deny the existence of God because of not having scientific evidence? Now, scientific evidence, we have to understand, while science is a wonderful tool for humanity and it has helped us to really make all kinds of advances in life and all kinds of facilities and communications and all kinds of transportation, everything that we have, a lot of things have been developed through science. So science is something to be appreciated and admired. But at the same time, if there is no scientific evidence for something, can we say that that doesn't exist? If we really understand science, science has certain limitations. If you don't understand the limitations of science, then you cannot benefit from science properly. What are some limitations of science? Any thoughts? What are some limitations of science? Science, for example, is meant to study only the physical world. Only the physical world. Science is not meant to study anything beyond the physical world. Science is meant to study and talk about things that are tangible, that are accessible to human beings, something that's measurable, something that you can really get a hold of. That's what science meant for. Science does not talk about anything beyond that. For example, our soul, our spirit. Science, there's no way for science to talk about it. No scientist would dare to talk about the soul or a spirit. But does that mean that soul doesn't exist because science doesn't talk about it? The same thing about God, about angels, about next life, about many other realities of this life. Science cannot talk about it because this is not the subject of science. Science would never dare to bring this topic because science only talks about things that are tangible, that are physical, that are accessible to us. Okay? Yes?
And even science only discovers things. It doesn't really actually originate anything, right? Like the tangible things, like we discovered this, we discovered that. It's like the source of that is not from science.
And so, yes, so science helps us to discover things, but even before the discovery, what was the position? Like, say virus. At one point, we human beings, we did not know anything about the existence of virus or bacteria. But if people in those days say, there is no virus at all because we cannot have any proof for it, was that reasonable? Wouldn't we laugh on those people? that these people were so ignorant. Just because they did not have the microscope, just because they did not have the right tools to access it, why they denied it? Based on what they denied it? So just because you cannot study something through science, is that reasonable to say it doesn't exist? Because science itself is moving and advancing, and certain things is not clear to science at all. Later on, until at some point, everybody said that the sky is what we see, that blue sky, that's it. Now with the telescope, we are able to see so much more beyond the skies, be so much of the other parts of the world and the universe. People maybe 200-300 years ago, they would say that, okay, that's it. What we see in the sky is the limit. But now we may laugh on them that, hey, these were so limited. These people had their mind was so limited. So if there is no scientific evidence, it is not reasonable to reject something. And we'll talk about additional limitations of science later on. If some people say that just because my prayer was not answered, is that reasonable to reject? We already talked about it. And if some religious claims are being disproved by science, is that enough to reject the whole religion and reject God even? Just because some religion made some claims, some religions made some claims that doesn't make sense or do not make sense or rejected. Other religions may have a very good explanations for it. So let me study another religion instead of making that conclusion that God doesn't exist just because this religion cannot explain it. It's not reasonable to reject it. And yes, we cannot see God, and we'll talk about it, why we cannot see God, but aren't there enough signs of God inside us and around us to believe in God? Just like for so many other things we believe because of their signs, so aren't there signs enough to believe in God? Let me give a simple example. This building. You see this building when you see all the structures and the organization of this room, when you see the windows, the wall, the ceiling, the electricity, the air conditioning, this PowerPoint system, this TV monitor, and when you see the stairs that you walk through, when you see the bathroom and division of classrooms and everything, right? Aren't they all signs of an architect behind this building? Aren't they all signs of a builder behind this building? Do we need to see a builder to say that, oh, this building was built by somebody? Aren't there enough signs of a builder behind this building? Every aspect of this room and building tells me that there's a builder behind this room, behind this building. I don't have to see the builder. Say, imagine the builder has hidden himself and doesn't want to show us. Can we conclude that there's no builder behind this building because I cannot see it? Just like every aspect of this building is a sign of a builder, every aspect of this world and universe and our life is a sign of a designer, a creator behind it. Aren't there abundant signs and reasons to rationally believe in the ultimate cause? Call it God, whatever you call it, an ultimate cause behind everything. Now, there's another thing that a lot of times people, they say that, oh, you guys believe in something that you cannot see. That's kind of a blind faith. But we must distinguish between blind faith and belief in unseen. Belief in unseen in Islam is called what? Ghaib. Ghaib. Ghaib means something that is absent from our vision. Something that's hidden. But it is there. It's a reality that we cannot see. That's called ghaib. So in Islam, in many other divine religions, you believe in ghaib. You believe in things that you cannot see. But is belief in unseen the same as blind faith? That's the question. Blind faith means faith in something that doesn't make sense. Okay? Blind faith means faith in something that it doesn't make sense and you can disprove it. If you can disprove something, then you can say that I don't want to believe in it. For example, say someone says, I believe in this statue. There's a statue and says, I believe in this statue, that this statue can save my life. I really believe that this statue can save my life. And you can do something like this and the statue will fall down and smash into pieces. Say, wait a minute, this statue could not even save itself. I just broke it into pieces. It could not even save itself. You believe that this statue can save you? And they say, well, I still believe that this statue saves me. Now, this is blind faith. Blind faith is belief in something that doesn't make sense, that you can disprove it. It's like putting your eyes closed and saying, I cannot see something. This is blind faith. But belief in unseen or ghaib is different. Belief in unseen is belief in something that you cannot see, but there are all kinds of rational evidences, logical evidences, but there's no physical evidence. So belief in unseen is something that makes sense to believe. For example, it makes sense to believe in a God. It makes sense that there must be another life. It makes sense that this book, Quran, should be a book of God, but it is not belief, it's not a blind faith, because blind faith is someone that can disprove it. It doesn't make sense. Do you see the difference between blind faith and belief in unseen? So belief in unseen is not blind faith. So if someone tells you, you guys believe in something that you cannot see, this is a blind faith? No, it's not a blind faith. Blind faith is different from belief in unseen. Is that clear to everybody? Yeah. Should I repeat it? Alhamdulillah. What did you say? Someone said yes? No?
Yeah, no, so we're good. I got it.
Okay, got it. All right. Now, a lot of people believe in God and religion in general blindly, meaning that they don't ask any questions. And a lot of times believe based on emotions, not based on rationale. But if you really think about it, belief is the most important aspect of human's life, isn't it? Belief is the most important aspect of human's life. How could you believe in something that doesn't make sense? You better make sense of it. Your heart and mind should witness it in order to believe in it, right? So belief must be rational. A belief must be rational, meaning that at least you cannot disprove it. At least it should not be something that doesn't make sense. Now, that would lead us to the question that can we really rationally address the faith and quest to God? That's the first aspect of belief, so believing in God. And in order to answer that question, let us ask ourselves, how do we learn and confirm or prove any realities in our daily life? How do we discover a reality in our daily life? How do we confirm a reality in our daily life on a daily basis? If you really think about it, all the methods that human beings have used so far to develop science and all kinds of knowledge is based on three methods. First method is through sensory perceptions. Things that we see, things that we hear, things that are perceivable by our five senses. That's the first method that we believe in it, because someone says, I swear that it exists because I heard it myself, because I saw it myself, right? So that's one way, but this is not the only way. The second way is through logical inference, logical reasoning, logical conclusions. A lot of times we cannot see things, but it makes sense to believe in it. It's logical, there's logical basis for it. For example, in mathematics, if I say A equals B, B equals C, then I conclude logically that A is equal C. I don't have to see the equality of A and C. As long as A is equal B and B is equal C, then I logically conclude that A is equal C. You see, so logical conclusion. And the third method that so far human beings have developed all kinds of knowledge is based on expert witnesses. For many things, there are many things in the life and in the world that we cannot see it ourselves, but also logically we cannot make that conclusion. But if some expert comes and tells us that this is what it is, we believe in it. A simple example, we all go to medical doctors and you just explain your symptoms and the doctor makes a conclusion that you have this kind of virus or this kind of disease. Now, there's no way for us to see that kind of disease with our eyes or that kind of explanation. And logically also we cannot make that conclusion. Why? Because we don't have the knowledge of the medical sciences. Only people who have the knowledge of medical sciences, they can make that logical conclusion. So, but we trust them because the doctor is supposed to be an expert witness. So we trust them and we accept what they are saying. Similarly, if you write a paper about anything, if you write a book, you always use all kinds of references, right? So you depend on other people. You refer to them, and as long as you refer to a good scientist, a good scholar, a good expert, then people accept it. You don't have to prove it. You just say that so and so said so. You give references to them. So it's a concept that we use all the time in our life, in our daily life. Experts come in the court and give witnesses. Experts tell us about history. How do we know that certain things happened in the world, in the history? Were we there? No. Logically, can we conclude that? No. But just because historians have written to us and because it has been repeated by so many experts of history, so we accept it as a fact. Right? So these are the three methods that we have developed every kind of knowledge so far in the world by human beings, by one or a combination of these methods. Every piece of knowledge is collected through one of these methods or a combination of them. Now, if this is the case, that we discover realities only through these three methods, then the question comes that can we use one of these methods or any of these methods to prove the reality of God? Because we're using these three methods every day for discovering any kind of reality. If we are using these three methods every day, can we use it to prove the existence of God? Because the reality of God is also something that's claimed and that's understood by people. So let us look at one by one. Can we use the first method to confirm the existence of God? The sensory perception. Can we see God? Can we hear God? Can we touch God? Anybody says yes? No, we cannot because our senses have limitations. We can see only so much, right? First of all, we cannot see behind this wall. But even if there's no wall, how far we can see? We can see only a distance of a couple miles or so, right? So our vision has limited capability. The same thing our hearing has certain ability. From physics we know that we can only hear certain frequencies. Beyond that we cannot. It will make us deaf, or smaller than that we will not be able to hear. The same thing, touching is so limited, taste is so limited, smelling is so limited. So these five senses have their own limitations, and because of those limitations we cannot see God. So, and many other things we cannot see, but we cannot deny that something doesn't exist because our senses cannot perceive them. So the first method is not beneficial to prove the existence of God, and many people conclude that God doesn't exist because this method doesn't work for them. But also this method is not enough to conclude that God doesn't exist just because we cannot see God or we cannot hear God. Right? We have to understand the limitations of our senses. Our senses have certain limitations. Now, logical inference. Can we use logical inference to prove the existence of God? Yes or no? Yes. Yes. Why? Because of so many things. Earlier we alluded to principle of cause and effect. Principle of cause and effect says that everything has a cause. So this life must have a cause, logically. This world must have a cause. And also, if we go through the sequence of causes, for example, how this chair was made. Well, this chair was made, for example, from wood or from metal. Well, where the wood came from? Well, it came from the tree. Well, where the tree came from? From the jungle. How the jungle was made? Well, the jungle, somebody, put the tree, or the wind brought the seeds, and okay, who created that person? Well, it came from his father, his mother. Okay, who brought it? So you go to this sequence of causes. Where do we reach? If we go through the sequence of causes, what is the final answer? But mathematically, logically, if I tell you that there's a sequence 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, what is the last number? Infinity, right? in mathematics and physics, we have accepted all a concept called infinity. Basically, an unknown point that is unlimited, and there's no limit for it. There is no kind of starting and ending for it, and that is infinity. If I say 5 divided by 0, we say infinity, meaning that infinite number of times you can divide 5 by 0 and still it's 5. So infinity is a concept. Now, if we go through sequence of creation, this was caused by this, this was caused by this, this was caused by this, finally we reach a point which is called infinity. And if you study any divine religion, God is explained as infinity. If you understand concept of infinity, meaning that God is really infinite, meaning that God has no limitations, no finite attributes. For example, God can see everything regardless of any kind of barriers. God can see inside the earth, God can see inside our body, God can see anything, anywhere. His vision is infinite. His power is infinite. His knowledge is infinite. His existence is infinite. And God has no beginning and no ending. No beginning and no ending. Why? Because infinity cannot have a beginning or ending. If you know the beginning and ending of something, that's no longer infinity. If you know the beginning of something or ending of something, it's no longer infinity. Because infinity means that there's no beginning and no ending. And because of his nature being infinity, God cannot have another cause. God cannot have a creator. Because if God has a creator, that means he started at some point. He was created at some point. So before it, he didn't exist. So that means he's not infinity. Then the creator of God is infinity. You follow? So by definition of logic, God, if it's infinite, infinite means that has no beginning and no ending. So there's no cause for creation of God, and God will never die. And God was not born, God will not die. Infinity also, how many infinities exist? Logically, there can be only one infinity, right? Because if you say there are two infinities, it means one infinity starts from here and reaches here, and then the second infinity starts from here. Well, if that's the case, then it's no longer infinity, because you know the beginning and the ending of it. So infinity means that there's no beginning, no ending. You follow? So once you understand this concept of infinity, then you can easily understand the concept of God. And if you understand that God is infinite, meaning that he has infinite power, he can do anything. He can do anything. There's no limit for God to do anything. All descriptions of God comes as a concept of infinity. And you can see that second method is very beautifully used to prove and confirm the existence of God. What about the third method? The third method is reliance on expert testimony of credible witnesses. We said this is a concept that we use in science. This is a concept we use in the courts. We use in the labs. We always depend on experts. Now, when it comes to expert of computer, we go to computers people. When our car is broken, we go to the workshop, mechanical person, right? Mechanic. When anything else, when our body has some problem, disease, we go to the medical doctor. But when it comes to topic of God, have there been any experts who have told us about God throughout the history? Prophets of God. Prophets of God have been the expert witnesses about God. Why? Because they were the people who had first-hand knowledge coming from God directly to them. And they received a special knowledge about the existence of God, and they were exposed to unseen. They were exposed to unseen. They saw the angels that we cannot see. And the angels brought the book to them and guidance to them. And some of them even saw, like Prophet Muhammad saw the heaven and the earth and the Jannah and the Jahannam, and all of this was shown to them. So they were shown. Just like we depend on scientists who have seen certain things under microscope. And we believe them, right? How many of us, when we studied physics or chemistry in the high school or middle school, how many of us question that, I don't believe there is an atom. I don't believe that there's proton and neutron inside the atom. We all accept it. Why we accept it? Because it comes from a trustworthy source. Because it comes from an expert. An expert scientist has seen under microscope the existence of proton and neutron and electron, and they wrote about it, and we all read it, and we all accepted it. We never questioned it, right? The same way, there has been some experts, just like scientists, but more trustworthy than scientists, who have seen the unseen, who have seen the angels, who have even seen the next life, and who have brought to us books. And these scientists may or may not agree with each other, but these individuals, they have never disagreed with each other. All prophets of God brought a common message. They all were called brethren of each other, brothers of each other. They all confirmed each other. They all supported each other. And scientists may be dishonest sometimes, but these people never were dishonest. They were the most honest people on the earth, and they were always consistent. They were always selfless. So they were the best experts that we can depend on, and we had such individuals throughout the history. So if these people not only confirmed for us that God exists, but they even brought evidences. They brought books from God that until today we have those books. Some of them are intact, some of them are modified, but we still have evidences. Evidences from God that until today exists, the books from God. So this third method also can be very logically and intellectually be used to prove the existence of God. Just like we depend on any other expert, we can easily depend on prophets as real experts. Now some people may say, well, prophets were a long time ago, they are not here now that they can prove to us. So the doubt is now about the authenticity of the message. So we have to study the message. If the message that we have today, if we can verify that this message was really the message that originally those prophets brought, then all the being a long time ago doesn't matter anymore, as long as we can confirm that the message has not been changed. The message has not been adulterated. If the message has been adulterated, then yes, we can question the authenticity of it. You follow? So we see that this third method can be easily used to confirm. Only the first method cannot be used. The second and third method can be easily used. Now let me make it simpler by giving you an example of these three methods. The room right now being, having light, is it a reality or not? It's a reality that this room has light, right? How many ways we can prove this light? First method, we all can see the lamp, right? So the first method, we can prove that light, this room has light and light is on because we can see the lamp. But imagine someone from the hall who cannot see the lamps, they can only see the brightness in the room. Can they also conclude that the light is on? This is the second method, logical inference. So they don't see the lamp, but logically they can conclude that this room, the light is on. It's the second method. They don't have to see the light. We don't have to see the light in the hall. Right now, look at the hall is on. We can say the light is on. The third method, say the door is closed and somebody comes from the hall and tells us that the light is on in the hallway. Do we have any room for doubt if that person is okay? We all accept it. If someone comes and tells us, as long as someone is trustworthy and tell us that the light is on in the hall, we don't have to logically conclude. We don't have to physically conclude. We can conclude based on the witness of the person who said that the light is on. You follow now? This is the third method. So just to prove the reality of the light being on, you can see that how we are making it three different methods to confirm the same thing about God. Three methods, but one method has limitations, and the other two methods can be easily used. Now in the next 20 slides, I have a lot of explanations of each of these methods that I want you to read, and I want you to really reflect on it and understand with much more examples. Not 20, but about maybe 12, 13 slides. So read them. I try to be very brief right now. Okay. Now, so we have 2-3 minutes left. If you want, we can stay a little longer, but we want to finish officially at 9. After they believe in the existence of God, someone says, okay, now I'm convinced that God exists. What is next? We can guess some attributes of God, right? We can say that this God who has created this universe must be very knowledgeable, because without knowledge, he cannot create something useful. And also, he must be very powerful, because without power, he cannot create. He must be also very wise, because everything has a reason behind it, so there must be wisdom behind it. So there are a few attributes that we can guess. But how can we know more about God? For example, we want to know what pleases God, what displeases God. We want to know what is the purpose of life. We want to know what is the role of God in our life. We want to know that if there's a life after death or not. We want to know what is the soul all about. We want to know what are the angels all about. How can we find out this knowledge? Basically, we cannot, as human beings, do any kind of research about these topics, but we have to depend on God himself. Right? So we have to depend on God himself, and God has answered those questions. God, through his teachings, throughout the history, through his prophets and books, he has explained what is the purpose of life. He has explained what is next life all about. He has explained the soul. He has explained the angels. He has explained all those other areas that we need to know, and much more, how to live in order to succeed, how to bring peace to ourselves, how to bring peace to other people, all those other important questions that cannot be studied through research and human efforts, but so God has given us. So in order to confirm the existence of God, we can use the logic and our mind, but we cannot use our logic and mind to find out the teachings of God. We have to depend on God himself to tell us what is the purpose of life, to tell us all those other questions. So that basically leads us to believe in what? In the third source, expert witnesses, because expert witnesses brought the answers to all of that. You follow? So logic is enough to confirm the existence of God, but the third method is needed in order to understand all the teachings of God and all the reasoning, everything. Okay? So with this, I stop, and but I'm willing to stay and answer questions if you have questions. And we started a little late, and break was a little longer. Otherwise, I would have given you a little more time for questions. But if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. And please stay. Now about logistics, if I may. Do you want the class to start at 7:30? Is it better for you, or 7 is good? 7 is good. 7 is good? All right. Because I was thinking that some people who come from long distances until they have dinner and all that, they want to a little later, but 7 is good.
Next Monday is a holiday.
Okay, next Monday is a holiday for some people, but not for us, right? In fact, it is better for us. We don't have to worry about work. We just come relaxed if we don't have job, right? So, does anyone have problem coming next Monday? Okay, so we have the class, two more classes. And as I said, if we cannot finish it, we may go to a fourth class. But I'm trying to finish it in 3 classes. So be willing and be considerate of the fourth class option. Please, plan it. And one second, one second.
Minute. I need to take a vote. So we have a space issue, as you can see. I already limited the capacity to 40 people, and we've exceeded that. So we can't change the space, but we can change some options. Would people be willing to sit on the floor? Yes? Okay, so next class what we'll do is we'll have half people on chairs, and we'll have carpets here with the seats on the floor. And that should inshallah alleviate some of the space. For people who haven't registered, I'm going to open up the registration just for tonight, and then just register online. And then after people have registered, tomorrow I'll send out, this is recorded, so I'll also send you the video, and I'll also send you the PowerPoint. And then if you have any questions, let me know. This is also being live streamed, so if people you know that want to attend, they can also still register for the online access only, and that'll give them the live stream link. They can see the recorded sessions and the notes and everything. So if you have any questions, my name is Omar. You got the email from me. You can reply to the email, or you can email me directly about anything you need. And if you have anything else, we'll see you next week.
Does anybody have problem with finding the link if you came just there and you don't have that?
It's on the website. If you haven't registered, imakespace.com, you'll see the flyer for the class. Just click on the flyer, it'll take you to the registration page.
Thank you. Any questions that I can answer? Anybody? I'm willing to stay. Salaam alaikum.